New York, 1919. 2 million U.S. soldiers returned victorious from World War I. They parade through Madison Square, optimistic about a young country on the rise. At the start of the decade, New York is the world's largest financial market, the beating heart of American capitalism. But both veterans and bankers are in for an unpleasant surprise. At noon on September 16, 1920, a horse-drawn wagon passing by lunchtime crowds stops across from the J.P. Morgan Bank at 23 Wall Street. Then, an explosion kills 38 and leaves 143 seriously wounded. Anarchists targeting the rich are the prime suspects, but no one is ever arrested. A flash of terror, quickly forgotten. Trading resumes the next day as the wolves of Wall Street launch a decade of unprecedented growth. But before the party comes a hangover. The end of wartime production slams the brakes on America's economy. Nearly half of returning soldiers find themselves unemployed and relying on breadlines. Many Americans are hurting financially. For those who can't afford leather shoes, an enterprising store offers a cheaper alternative: clogs made of wood. In March 1921, new President Warren G. Harding promises to put things right for America, a return to normalcy. Historians will later view Harding as one of America's worst presidents. But during his term, he benefited from an age of rapid innovation. One early adopter is a Fox Movie-Tone news cameraman, Harry Birch of Chicago. When he's not filming newsreels, he takes some of the earliest known home movies, featuring his wife Lucille and son Bill. Cars are becoming so popular that even young Bill has one. His dad has the must-have marvel of the day, the revolutionary Ford Model T. Its designer is Henry Ford, the greatest engineer of his era. By the 1920s, Ford and his Tin Lizzie have turned America into a nation of car owners.
A young man makes up his mind to work. There's no limit to what he can do.
In 1913, Ford had introduced the moving assembly line, a revolution in auto manufacturing. Workers used to make one car at a time. Ford puts them in workstations, installing each part of the chassis as it moves down a line. It's up to 4 times faster than the old way. Black paint is cheap and durable. Ford famously says customers can have any color they like, so long as it's black. By 1920, a new car rolls off the line every 2 hours. And over half of all cars in America are Model Ts. Each one is simple, reliable, and durable. Important in a nation where less than 2% of the roads are suitable for driving. Ford also revolutionizes business practices. He gives employees a 5-day work week. their first weekends off and pays them enough to afford their own Model T, selling at a little over $300. In his company newsletter, Ford says, "It is high time to rid ourselves of the notion that leisure for workmen is either lost time or a class privilege." Millions of sales turned Detroit into a boom town, and Ford into a billionaire. It's a new age of great industrialists. In 1921, Ford joins tire magnate Harvey Firestone on the left and inventor Thomas Edison on the right on a trip to the Catskills. Even President Harding pays a visit. As four of the most powerful people on the planet take a break from the stresses of work and enjoy the great outdoors, across the country, new roads emerge to accommodate millions of new car owners. By 1922, the economy is kicking into high gear. But there's one business that won't be joining the boom. Just 2 years earlier, Prohibition became law. It bans the production and sale of alcohol. This 1922 footage in Long Beach, California, shows the police destroying $30,000 worth of liquor. This is some of the earliest film ever of Prohibition. America is again a productive nation, and many believe it's also become a sober nation as well. But for some, the party never ends. It just goes underground. In this rare home movie, the Addams family of Brattleboro, Vermont, films a party where the liquor flows freely. A loophole in the law allows people to drink existing supplies at home. Even manufacturers find workarounds. In Napa Valley, vineyards stop making wine and start selling bricks of dried grapes with instructions.
Say, Lucille, what do they do with all these grapes?
Well, my father buys them to make grape juice. He would.
Adding water and 3 weeks in a cupboard makes wine. But even these loopholes don't meet the enormous demand. There's a growing black market, and organized crime is happy to satisfy the country's thirst. By the end of the 20s, Al Capone is earning millions of dollars a year from bootlegging. He's not the only one. Competition leads to gang wars. Nearly 600 mobsters die in Chicago alone over the course of the decade. The violence does nothing to slow the demand. The quest for a stiff drink gives birth to the speakeasy, password-protected entertainment with a shot of freedom. For women who just won the right to vote in 1920, these underground bars inspire a new, uninhibited lifestyle. One that will shock the more conservative sectors of society. As the writer Dorothy Parker puts it, she's not what Grandma used to be. The flapper, A hit movie gives a name to this brash new generation of women. Flappers cast aside much of what society considers proper behavior. They wear short dresses, bobbed hair, and lavish makeup, celebrating a newfound sexuality. The cosmetics industry booms as more women adopt the flapper style. Cigarettes become a symbol of liberation, and women embrace the image. The jazz age is in full swing. Most Americans have never had it so good. But while the flappers celebrate their social revolution, other Americans are reacting to change in a very different way. In the rural South, a dark force is rising, and a dormant volcano is about to explode. It's 1923, and America is on the upswing. Well-paid jobs abound as industry thrives and a largely unregulated stock market booms. Then, in August, President Harding dies suddenly from a heart attack. His successor, Calvin Coolidge, carries the torch of small government and big business.
One of the greatest favors that can be bestowed on the American people is economy in government.
Silent Cal famously says, "The chief business of the American people is business." For most Americans, the future is bright. But the country's political, social, and economic institutions strongly favor white citizens over people of color. Nowhere is it worse than for blacks living in the Jim Crow South. Many live and work in tough, segregated conditions. As these rare recordings show, the work songs have changed little since the time of slavery. In South Carolina, they lay the tracks for America's railways. And in Port Norris, New Jersey, they shuck oysters for wealthy diners. Some African-American communities are prospering, like the residents of Greenwood, a suburb of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Here, former slaves were given land after the Civil War, and this rare footage shows the thriving town they built. A remarkable Baptist pastor named Solomon Sir Jones is the pioneering filmmaker. His footage was lost for more than 50 years. Jones captures the bustling life of Greenwood, which could be any American small town. Tulsa's whites don't like what they see. In May 1921, after a black man is accused of assaulting a white woman, a white mob rampages through the city. For a night and a day, they loot and burn Greenwood. A Fox News crew captures the only surviving footage. It is the bloodiest racial massacre in American history, leaving nearly 300 dead. Behind the violence is a terrifying force, born in the 19th century, but until now, silent. The second wave of the Ku Klux Klan. News photographers capture a Klan march in Tulsa 1 year after the riots. The Klan appeals to white Americans who feel threatened by the fast pace of change in the 20s. Born in the South, the KKK spreads north. Its members promote what they call 100% Americanism, targeting not just blacks, but Catholics, Jews, immigrants. At the height of its power, newsreels capture 40,000 Klansmen and women massing in support of white supremacy on the streets of Washington, D.C. By 1924, its membership reaches a staggering 4 million. The KKK will remain a force of bigotry in this country for generations to come. Racial tensions in the South and bountiful jobs in the North prompt many African Americans to uproot their families. Nearly 1.6 million people choose to move in what becomes known as the Great Migration. It transforms neighborhoods, like New York's Harlem. Black Americans bring their culture and music with them: blues, jazz. Not for the last time, black music is adopted by white America. In one of the earliest recordings of an all-white jazz band, Ben Burney and his orchestra play their 1925 hit, Sweet Georgia Brown. Jazz finds a new home in the raucous speakeasies and nightclubs of the cosmopolitan cities. A flamboyant former actress named Texas Guinan runs New York's 300 Club, often greeting her customers with, "Hello, suckers."
Before I start to sing this song, I want it understood that no sucker in this room has been elected how it was.
Black music, illegal booze, and liberated women make her a fortune.
What's the greatest country in the whole world?
At Guinan's 300 Club, the Roaring 20s reach a colorful crescendo. Parts of the United States are evolving faster than ever before. In the middle of the decade, a new technology will unite the country and create new heroes. As 1925 begins, prosperity and new inventions revolutionize everyday life in America. Modern conveniences we now take for granted appear for the first time. Vacuum cleaners replace carpet beaters. Electric refrigerators, ovens, and washing machines save hours of work. But the invention that brings the whole country together is radio. This is Radio Row, New York City's Cortlandt Street, the world's largest collection of electronic stores. It will remain this way until 1966, when it's leveled to make way for the World Trade Center. Shop after shop competes by selling different models. And here, actual sounds of street crowds listening to a radio broadcast. Advertisers quickly see new and exciting ways to reach a massive audience. On Christmas Eve, 1926, Wheaties airs the first commercial jingle, and the cereal becomes the most popular in America. It's branded the Breakfast of Champions, and soon features prominent sports figures on each box.
The best breakfast food in the land.
For the first time, Americans can listen to sports events as they happen, anywhere in the country. Especially the national pastime, baseball. And players quickly become American heroes. None is bigger than Babe Ruth. No radio recordings of games exist, and this footage is rare. Ruth starts his career as a pitcher, but soon evolves into the greatest slugger the game has ever seen. In 1920, his first season with the Yankees, he leads the league with 54 home runs. The next highest total is 19.
Hello, honey. How'd you like that one?
He and his wife, Claire, are a glamorous power couple.
Well, I'm going out now and try to make another one for you. All right, darling.
He sets one of the game's greatest records in September of 1927 by hitting 60 home runs in a single season. And the Yankees reward him with a contract for $80,000 per year, an astronomical amount at that time. By 1926, 5 million homes own a radio, a staggering increase on the 2,000 homes at the start of the decade. Just in time for one of the century's greatest sporting controversies. Boxer Jack Dempsey has won 66 bouts over 13 years. Born in poverty in Colorado, Dempsey has Irish, Cherokee, and Jewish ancestry. He's a strong, offensive fighter, making it to the top through skill and guts. His 1921 victory over French boxer Georges Carpentier is the first $1 million match. It turns him into a national star.
Announcer Joe Humphreys died away. The Argentinian and the champion staged the most savage slugfest ever witnessed.
Dempsey doesn't believe in defense. Relentless attack is his style.
Murderous right, cruel left hooks crashed on Firpo's body and jaw. Dempsey's pile-driving fist battered him to the canvas time and again.
The public loves it, and him.
He was up, down again, and
In 1926, he fights Gene Tunney, a former U.S. Marine with 64 wins under his belt. Tunney, shocks Dempsey and the nation with his victory. A year later, in 1927, 50 million Americans tune into the rematch in Chicago. This is the radio commentary they heard.
They're coming together. This is the 7th round. They're up. Dempsey came into Tunney. Both of them shot.
Dempsey is in black shorts with a red trim. In the 7th round, he floors Tunney.
Dempsey comes back. And Tunney is down. Tunney is down. From the out left and right to the face.
He's supposed to go to a neutral corner before the 10-second count can begin. But he doesn't move for 4 crucial seconds. It buys Tunney extra time. He's down for a full 13 seconds before getting up.
Out left and right to the face.
It becomes known as the long count.
On the other side, 8, 9, and Tunney is up. And now they're at it again. Tunney.
The fight continues, and Tunney wins on points, despite being down longer than the allowed count of 10.
It's all out, and Dempsey is practically
Ignoring a press storm, Dempsey accepts the decision gracefully. His attitude in defeat is applauded and made famous by the radio. He retires at age 33, a wealthy, popular symbol of the American dream. One man sets out to prove that the nation's spirit is unbroken. This is 24-year-old Charles Lindbergh in 1926, the aviator's earliest known film footage. He's just a year out of Army flight training school and already dreaming of making history. Lindbergh wants to win a $25,000 prize for the first solo non-stop flight from New York to Paris. At stake is the future of air travel. Transatlantic ocean liners are safe and reliable, but slow. Planes are considered too dangerous. 6 pilots have already died attempting the 3,600-mile crossing. Long Island, May 20th, 1927. Lindbergh readies the Spirit of St. Louis, his $10,000 custom-built monoplane. "500 spectators have gathered to see him off. On board, he's packed 5 ham sandwiches to keep him going. At 7:52 a.m., he's off. And after a few bounces, aloft, just barely clearing telephone lines. He will be in the air for 33.5 hours, with no radio and only a compass. The press dub him the Flying Fool. At 10:24 p.m. in Paris, tens of thousands witness his triumphant night landing. Instantly, 25-year-old pilot, now dubbed Lucky Lindy, becomes the most famous American in the world. 4 million people line Fifth Avenue for a ticker-tape parade. He epitomizes the nation, young, handsome, and brave. And his daring feat proves that flight is the future of travel. Congress awards Lindbergh the Medal of Honor. And the following year, he becomes Time magazine's first ever Man of the Year. For 3 months, he tours the country visiting every state. 1 in 4 Americans sees Lindy on his Guggenheim tour. The Hines family from Portland, Maine is among them. On July 24th, they capture Lindbergh's arrival in Portland in a home movie. The Hines have profited from creating a successful hand cream business. A new generation of women wanting their product and the power of mass production has made them and others rich and utterly transformed America. There are now 20 million cars crowding into American cities. Accidents become common as pedestrians have to learn to watch out for cars, and vice versa. There's no such thing as a driver's test. Faced with this new threat to public safety, authorities turn to innovation, like the traffic light, as seen here on New York's Fifth Avenue. Soon, traffic cops and stop signs begin to appear throughout the country. Still, fatalities increase from 12,000 in 1920 to over 30,000 by the end of the decade. Education campaigns try to highlight the dangers by putting totaled cars on display, some even shaming the drivers. In Portland, Maine, the Hines family shares in the national tragedy. Their son, William, is seen here in home movie footage at age 5 in 1924. A year later, a Ford Model T strikes and kills him on Vaughn Street. He's the fourth boy in the area to be struck by a car within 24 hours. But car culture isn't the only trend shaping the country. A soaring economy has construction reaching for the sky. In Manhattan, a series of ambitious skyscrapers rise up, each competing to claim the title of tallest in the world. The Chrysler Building becomes the first man-made structure to breach 1,000 feet. It's a leading example of Art Deco architecture that remains iconic to this day. This is rare footage of its famous eagles being installed on the 61st floor. Like the Statue of Liberty, they're thinner than they seem. The working men who construct the buildings, known as roughnecks, are a special breed.
Pretty high up there.
They work without harnesses, safety ropes, or hard hats, spending 8-hour shifts in the clouds with no bathroom breaks. Workers fling red-hot rivets by hand through the air. These jobs are so dangerous that 2 out of 5 fall to their deaths or end up disabled. Across town on 34th Street, construction begins on an enormous 102-floor office building, intended to be a symbol of New York's wealth and power. Former New York Governor Al Smith actively promotes the construction.
As fast as human ingenuity, brains, and ability can bring it about, there will tower on this corner the Empire State Incorporated, the largest office building in the world.
But the boom is a bubble about to burst. Nearly 80% of goods are bought on credit, Most Americans have no savings at all. Consumers are stretching themselves thin. And with a runaway bull market, few realize what's about to come. The skyscrapers crown a hollow economy that is about to spin dangerously out of control. But for much of the country, the good times keep rolling along. Wall Street is booming. Trading volumes are so high that in 1928, the New York Stock Exchange introduces tickers that can print 500 characters a minute, twice as fast as before. Millions of investors are out to get rich quick, often by borrowing money and buying on margin. For the first time, Americans can buy now and pay later. But the market gains are driven by optimism, not on the strength of the companies. Few worry. As long as there are buyers, it seems like a license to print money. By September 1929, the Dow Jones has tripled since 1924. It seems like the bull market will last forever. What most investors don't know is there are too many goods to sell. Total car sales have dropped 30%. In Detroit, unsold cars pile up in scrapyards. At the sound of the opening bell on Thursday, October the 24th, 1929, there are no buyers, only sellers. The market falls by 11%. In 2 hours, $9 billion is lost. Terrified banks recall payment from traders who have borrowed money. Most can't pay, leaving the banks in crisis. On Tuesday, the 29th, the New York Stock Exchange goes into a total spiral. Brokers beg to sell at any price. It comes to be known as Black Tuesday. $25 billion evaporate almost overnight. This isn't just about Wall Street. Banks will shut down all across the country. $140 billion in savings will disappear. Ordinary people are ruined. Assistant Secretary of Commerce Julius Klein reaches out through radio to restore calm.
That regardless of regrettable stock market gyrations, the position of commerce and industry throughout the country is fundamentally sound.
He's wrong. After the Roaring '20s, Americans will come to know their next chapter as the Great Depression. It's a defining time for a young nation, and she will revive. But the future will not be easy. When the giant Empire State Building opens the following year, it has few tenants.
We are about to officially open the Empire State Building, the largest and most beautiful office building in the world.
It stands lifeless, mocked as the empty State Building. It will take 2 full decades until 1950 before it turns a profit. America's 10-year party has led to a hangover affecting millions.